The dead possum's still there. Oswald was looking out the passenger window at the gray, furry corpse on the side of the road. Somehow it looked even deader than it had yesterday. Last night's rain hadn't helped. Nothing looks deader than a dead possum, Oswald's dad said, except this town, Oswald mumbled, looking at the boarded-up storefronts and the display windows, which was displaying nothing but dust. What's that? Dad said. He was already wearing the stupid red vest they put him in when he worked the deli counter at the snack space. Oswald wished he'd wait to put it on until after he dropped him at school. This town, Oswald said, louder this time. This town looks deader than a dead possum. His dad laughed. Well, I don't guess I can argue with that. 3 years ago, when Oswald was 7, there had actually been stuff there to do here. A movie theater, a game and card store, an ice cream shop with amazing waffle cones. But then the mill had closed. The mill had basically been the reason the town existed. Oswald's dad had lost his job, and so had hundreds of other kids' moms and dads. Lots of families had moved away, including Oswald's best friend Ben and his family. Oswald's family had stayed because his mom's job at the hospital was steady, and they didn't want to move far away from Grandma. So Dad ended up with a part-time job at the snack space, which paid $5 an hour less than he'd made at the mill. And Oswald watched the town die. One business after another shut down, like the organs in a dying body, because nobody had the money for movies, or games, or amazing waffle cones anymore. Are you excited it's the last day of school? Dad asked. It was one of those questions adults always asked. Like, how was your day? And did you brush your teeth? Oswald shrugged. I guess. There's nothing to do with Ben gone. School's boring, but home's boring too. When I was 10, I wasn't home in the summer until I got called for supper, Dad said. I rode my bike and played baseball, and I got into all kinds of trouble. Are you saying I should get in trouble? Oswald said, No. I'm saying you should have fun. Dad pulled into the drop-off line in front of Westbrook Elementary. Have fun. He made it sound so easy. Oswald walked through the school's double doors, ran smack into Dylan Cooper, the last person he wanted to see. Oswald was apparently the first person Dylan wanted to see, though, because his mouth spread wide in a wide grin. Dylan was the tallest kid in 5th grade, and clearly enjoyed looming over his victims. Well, if it isn't Oswald the Ocelot, he said, his grin spread wider and possibly wider. That one never gets old, does it? Oswald walked past Dylan and was relieved when his tormentor chose not to follow him. When Oswald and his 5th grade classmates were preschoolers, there was a cartoon on one of the little kids' channels about a big pink ocelot named Oswald. As a result, Dylan and his friends had started calling him Oswald the Ocelot. On the first day of kindergarten and had never stopped. Dylan was the kind of kid who'd pick on anything that made you different. If it hadn't been Oswald's name, it would have been his freckles or his cowlick. The name calling had gotten much worse this year in U.S. history when they learned the man who shot John F. Kennedy was named Lee Harvey Oswald. Oswald would rather have been an ocelot than an assassin. Since it was the last day of school, there was no attempt at doing any kind of real work. Miss Meacham had announced the day before the students were allowed to bring their electronics as long as they took responsibility for anything lost or broken. This announcement meant that no effort would be made toward any educational activities of any kind. Oswald didn't have any modern electronics. True, there was one laptop at home, but the whole family shared it, and he wasn't allowed to bring it to school. He had a phone, but it was the saddest, most out-of-date model imaginable. He didn't want to take it out of his pocket because he knew any kid who saw it would make fun of how pathetic it was. So while other kids played games on their tablets or handheld consoles, Oswald sat. After just sitting became intolerable, he took out a notepad and pencil and started to draw. Well enough that his images were identifiable, and there was a certain cartoony quality about his drawings that he liked. The best thing about drawing, though, was that he could get lost in it. It was like he fell into the paper and became part of the scene he was creating. It was a welcome escape. He didn't know why, but lately he had been drawing mechanical animals, bears, bunnies, and birds. He imagined them being human-sized and moving with the jerkiness of robots in an old science fiction movie. They were furry on the outside, but the fur covered a hard metal skeleton filled with gears and circuits. Sometimes he drew the animal's exposed metal skeleton and sketched them, with the fur peeled back to show some of the mechanical workings underneath. It was a creepy effect, like seeing a person's skull peeking out from beneath the skin. Oswald was so immersed in his drawings that he was startled when Miss Meacham turned off the lights to show a movie. Movies always seemed like a teacher's final act of desperation. On the day before break, a way to keep the kids quiet and relatively still for an hour and a half before setting them loose for the summer. The movie Miss Meacham chose was, in Oswald's opinion, too babyish for a room full of fifth graders. It was about a farm with talking animals, and he had watched it before. But he watched it again because, really, what else did he have to do? At recess, kids stood around tossing a ball back and forth, talking about what they were going to do over the summer. I'm going to football camp. I'm going to basketball camp. I'm going to hang out at my neighborhood pool. I'm going to stay with my grandparents in Florida. Oswald sat on a bench and listened. For him, there would be no camps, no pool members, and no trips, because there was no money. And so he'd draw pictures, play his old video games that he already beaten 1,000 times, and maybe go to the library. If Ben was still there, it would be different. Even if they were just doing the same old stuff, they would be doing it together. And Ben would always make Oswald laugh, riffing on video game characters and doing a perfect impersonation of one of their teachers. He and Ben had fun no matter what they did. But now a summer without Ben yawned before him, wide and empty. Most days, Oswald's mom worked from 12 p.m. to 12 a.m., so his dad had to make dinner. Usually they got by on frozen meals like lasagna or chicken pot pie, or on cold cuts and potato salad from the snack space deli that they were still good enough to eat, but not good enough to sell. When Dad did cook, it was usually things that just required boiling water.